Does your living room look a little bit off, but you can't figure out what it is? Well, we may identify it in today's video because I'm sharing 11 interior design mistakes you're making in your living room that you may not even realize. Now, before we get into today's video, please consider smashing that subscribe button, but let's start chatting. A mistake I see people make all of the time is that they will orient their rug perpendicular to their primary seating. And the primary seating in the living room is oftentimes the sofa. So that is what I mean, and that's what I'll mean going forward. When you have it perpendicular, this often means that the most narrow part of the rug is underneath the sofa. What ends up happening is parts of the sofa will spill off of the rug and onto the floor. This will also happen with our chairs, our media consoles, and so forth. This actually makes the room feel a lot more cluttered and small than it actually is because the rug is meant to anchor your furniture. In an ideal world, all of your furniture will either be entirely on top of your rug or touching your rug. So when your furniture is spilling off and over, this actually makes it feel like the rug is too small, like the space is too small, and you filled it with too much furniture. It results in what feels like a scale issue, even though it really isn't. All you need to do is actually rotate that rug. When it comes to your living room, you want your rug to be parallel to your primary seating. This is the case if you have an Elle sectional, a chaise sectional, a sofa, it doesn't matter. You want the rug to be parallel to that sofa. That is going to be the best rule of thumb because it's going to make sure that the room flows together, all of the furniture flows together. It's going to make it feel cohesive and a lot more open. Now, that rug advice is great, but it doesn't really matter that much if you don't have the correct size. So the next interior design mistake I see a lot in the living room is people will select rugs that are too small. Now, I will say this, rugs are very, very expensive, so let's do what we can. When a rug is too small, the front legs of your furniture are not touching that rug. So the rug kind of feels like it's floating. Maybe just the coffee table is sitting on it, but all of your furniture is around the periphery of that rug and isn't actually touching the rug. That is kind of the hallmark of your rug being too small. In an ideal world, we want the rug to be big enough that all of the front legs of your furniture, whether that be your media console, your accent chairs, or your sofa, can sit on top of that rug. Now, if we're balling big, or we found a rug on a great deal, we actually want all of the furniture in its entirety, besides like maybe your media console, to be able to sit on top of that rug. That is what we want the ideal rug sizing to be. And it's very similar to the first issue. When the furniture is not on top of the rug, it just feels like you've kind of filled, the space with stuff. When the rug is kind of floating in the middle and all the furniture is on the periphery, it makes it kind of feel like all the furniture is pushed up against the walls and it's just kind of begging to fit in the space. When the furniture is on top of the rug, it serves as an anchor and the rug kind of becomes a backdrop to the furniture and it is helping enhance the design. When the rug is too small, it is kind of a distraction from the design, which is not what we want. We want our space to feel as cohesive as humanly possible. So I gave you two options. That is what you can do if you're working with a smaller budget or if you have room in the budget to get a rug that is large in size. Now, someone is going to say, well, small rugs look fine sometimes. That's totally true. Another hack that you can do is you can get an oblong rug. So whether that be a cowhide or a squiggly rug or an amoeboid shaped rug, when you have a rug that is atypical in size, so atypical would be not a rectangle, square, or circle. When you have one of a different shape than those, you can get away with your rug being too small because it is more of a piece of art and less so of something that's kind of anchoring the design. But start getting rugs that are the right size. It is going to totally transform your design. Now it's time to talk about art. Art is one of the things that people always get wrong, but I'm going to show you how to fix it and you can make these changes for free. Now, your art should always be centered at 57 inches. By centered, I mean the centermost piece of that art should be at 57 inches. And why 57 inches? 57 inches is standard eye level. Now, you can look up standard eye level wherever you live, or if you're in a particularly tall family, you can, find the average eye level in your home and work with that. But the reason why we do that is because we want someone to be able to look around our home, whether it be yourself or someone else, and not have to move their head up or down to be able to experience all of the artwork. It's supposed to be a very immersive, easy, flowy experience, if you will. That is what we want it to be like when we are looking at art. So someone should be able to see that centerpiece of art without having to step on their tippy toes or crouch down or crane their neck in any sort of way. That is the best way to go about it. Now, if you have super tall ceilings, of course, you don't want your art all the way down in the floor and you have super tall ceilings. So you can shift the art upwards. I will say don't center the art above 65 inches because it can just get a little bit too tall. But if you have above standard height ceilings or 8 or so, that would be 8 feet or 9 feet. Of course, you can shift the art upwards as you see fit. But try to think about the center, or at least center all of your artwork at the same space. So again, you do not have to move your head up and down. It's just a very uniform experience as you are glancing through the artwork. Now, we have talked about art height, but let's talk about art size. So when it comes to art size, we want art to take up 2/3 of an open wall. So we want it to take up 2/3 of the space, both vertically and horizontally. A good way to kind of calculate your art size is to take the width of the wall and multiply that times 0.67, and then the height of the wall, multiply that times 0.67. So 0.67 is about 2/3, right? If you put it into decimal form instead of a fraction, but of course you can multiply it as a fraction as well. So this will give you the ideal height and width of a piece of art. Now, that would be good if you just want one piece, but if buying one piece is too expensive, you can always divide it by the number of pieces you want, or, you know, subtract the spacing between the pieces and then divide it by the number of pieces you want, so that you can figure out in terms of width and height how much space your art should take up. This is a great way to calculate art size for an open wall. Now, we just talked about where we should center our art, but when you're actually putting a piece of art over a piece of furniture, 57 inches isn't always the right number. So if you're dealing with an open wall, 57 inches is the way to go about it. But if you're putting a piece of art above a piece of furniture, you kind of want to nest it. So what does nesting mean? Nesting means that we want to put the piece of art 2 to 5 inches away from that piece of furniture. We want it to be close so that they feel like a cohesive unit, you know, kind of creating a vignette. So we want to nest pieces of furniture. That's why when you're hanging art above a sofa, sometimes it will feel a little bit lower than what you would put on an open wall. You want to think about your piece of furniture, and you want to think about the art in relation to that piece of furniture. With that being said, you don't want to choose an itty bitty piece of art to go above that sofa if you have to nest it. This is when you want to go for something oversized or something nice and tall, so that you can still nest that piece of art, but it doesn't feel small and quaint relative to the size of that wall or the size of the space in general. The next interior design mistake you're making in your living room and maybe in the rest of your home is that you do not understand the difference between proportion and scale. Now, a lot of times in interior design, people will use these terms interchangeably because we think they mean the same thing, but they do not. Proportion is the size of something relative to another object, and scale is the size of something relative to the room that it is in. So scale has to do with the room, and proportion has to do with the things around it. So when something is not right in terms of scale, something is maybe too small for the room overall. So if you have an itty bitty little rug in a room that is like, 20 feet by 20 feet, that is a scale issue. A proportion issue would be a, pillow that is 26 by 26 on a small love seat. There's nothing inherently wrong with the pillow. The pillow isn't too small for the room, but the pillow looks way too big for the particular piece of furniture that it is sitting on. Understanding these concepts and understanding that we need to think about the relationship of pieces not only to the room, but to the other pieces in the room can really elevate your design. Because sometimes we think about pieces individually and we're like, oh, we like this, or oh, I like the size of this. But if they do not work in harmony with one another, that can really mess up your design. You have to think about your space as a unit and not individual pieces. We can love something as an individual piece and it not work in our home, and vice versa. Now let's talk color, because color is something people really struggle with in their living rooms. Coming up with a color scheme can feel like such a pain. We have no idea how to go about it, but your color scheme or your color palette is actually not determined by colors that you just randomly enjoy. Of course, you should select colors that you enjoy, but your color palette is really determined by the color wheel. So I have an entire video on this and I will link this above in case you're interested, but if you want a little crash course, I'm going to give it to you now. There are many different types of color schemes. So an analogous, a monochromatic, a split complementary, a complementary, and these are the different ways that you can come up with a color scheme. So people don't arbitrarily choose, oh, I'm going to use blue and red. If you were to select blue and red, you might also select yellow, right? Because those are the primary colors and we're choosing all of those colors together. Now, if someone selects blue, green, and yellow, you might be saying, why do they choose those colors? That's actually called an analogous color scheme, and they're choosing colors that sit right next to one another 3 colors that sit right next to one another on the color wheel. There is a method to the madness. So instead of just arbitrarily choosing colors and kind of hoping that they work together, start looking at the color wheel and looking at the different types of color schemes. This is going to help you feel confident in selecting colors, and therefore is going to help you craft a home that actually looks like it blends well together. The next design mistake you're making in your living room has to do with pillows. So mistake number 1 is people are just adding way too many pillows to a space. Now, pillows are great for adding texture and color and dimension to a space, and I support you in that. But if you're finding that you're throwing those pillows on the floor, you shouldn't have that many pillows. You should have maybe 2 pillows per corner of your sofa. So if you have 2 corners in your sofa, you should have 4 total pillows. If you have 3 corners, right, you should have 6 total pillows. You could even have 7 if you want to throw an extra one, you know, in like that star corner of your sectional. But you don't want to have way too many pillows because they are not only visually overwhelming, but they're physically overwhelming. They end up on the floor and they create color. Another mistake you're probably making with the pillows is you're not varying the texture, the fabric, and all of that. If you're going to use the same fabric on all of your pillows, you want to vary the colors. If you're doing all of the same thing, it becomes very, very boring to look at, and you're then therefore spending more money than you need to. It's better to do less, right, and have them all be the same color than have more and have them all be the same color, because it's just piling on too much of the same thing. So vary them in terms of texture, color, and size. The last pillow mistake you're probably making is you're not thinking about the types of pillows you want to have in the different types of seating that you have in your living room. So if you have a accent chair in your living room, it may not be best to have a 24 by 24 full-size pillow. It may actually be more fruitful to have a lumbar pillow so that it can support someone's lumbar spine, so they can actually sit on top of the pillow or with the pillow behind them instead of throwing it on the floor. Because when we have pillows that are too big, they're actually in the way, they end up on the floor, and then again, we're creating more clutter than we need to. If we are on a sectional, right, you might want to think about using a down pillow instead of a down alternative insert, simply because if you're laying on the pillow, the down alternative can feel kind of uncomfortable. It doesn't have the give, so it might not be good for lounging. You want to think about how you use your furniture and the types of furniture before you're selecting your pillows. You are very particular about this when it comes to your bed, so you should be equally particular about this when it comes to your living room seating. The next living room design mistake you're making is that you're making the television the focal point of the room. Now, I know someone's already getting mad. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have a television, and I'm not saying that your sofa should be angled elsewhere. You should definitely have your sofa and your seating facing your television, but your television doesn't have to be the visual focal point. A lot of the times people will center their space around TV because that is where people gather to watch television, and they'll just leave the television bare. It's just television on that big blank wall, and that's all you see. So then you get some flack, right? Because your television isn't pretty. Even if you have a frame TV, I'm glad you have that. It does elevate the look, but it still isn't that pretty because the wall is bare. You need to balance out the rest of what you have going on. Have a closed media console or have an ornate media console. Balance out the sides of the media console with art, with baskets, with lighting, with plants. You don't want to just leave it blank. That's what people get wrong. They'll just put the TV on the wall and they're like, okay, that's it, I watch TV. Having things on the side of the television has nothing to do with your television watching experience. It's not increasing the glare. It's not causing any clutter. It's just stopping the TV itself from being the focal point and allowing the wall to be more of a feature wall. Now, something else you can do if you really don't want to center everything around your TV, which again, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but if you don't want to center around your TV, put your television on a swivel or put your TV on an easel so that you can move it about to kind of suit your needs. But as I said before, it can be something as simple as building a gallery wall around your TV or flanking your TV with art or plants or lighting or really anything to make it so that there's something more going on besides the TV on that wall. Next, we're going to talk coffee tables, because coffee tables are something people struggle with so much. Your coffee table is probably too small. When it comes to determining the width of your coffee table should be 2/3 the size of your sofa or one of the arms of your sofa. The reason that we do this is because we want to make sure that multiple people on the sofa can use the coffee table. If you eat around your TV, which I do, and you eat at your coffee table, you want both people to be able to eat on the coffee table if they want, or put their legs up, or play a game on the coffee table with ease without having having to sit on the floor or bring another chair over. So we want to make sure that we're not going too small when it comes to your coffee table sizing. At the same time, we don't want our coffee tables to be too big, because if we select something that is too big, it's really difficult to maneuver around and we just end up hurting our shins. The next living room design mistake also has to do with the coffee table, and something you're probably getting wrong is coffee table shape. Now, the most readily available coffee table shape is the rectangle, so it makes sense that you buy them, but you always want to think about the types of shapes that you have in your space already. If you have tons of furniture that is rectangular, there is merit in switching it up and adding a square or something oblong or something round, just so that you're creating a little bit more visual interest. Another benefit of the round coffee table is that there are no sharp edges, so this is good for kids, and this is also good for you if you are accidentally bumping yourself up against the coffee table. You're not going to injure yourself like you would with a sharp cornered rectangular or square table. As a good rule of thumb, I also don't like to use rectangular tables when you have a sectional, because not everyone has access to it, because there's one side that's shorter than the other. If you have a sectional, then it's a lot easier to use a square coffee table or a round coffee table, just so that everyone has equal access to that coffee table, so that the coffee table can actually fulfill its purpose, right? To actually hold things like coffee. That is it for today's video. Those are some interior design mistakes you are probably making in your living room, but they are relatively low cost to fix, and making these switches is going to totally transform your space. These are interior design mistakes that you're probably making because no one ever told you what you should be doing, but I hope you're feeling a lot more confident and knowledgeable after today's video. If you liked the video, please don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and check me out on Instagram, and let me know down in the comments if you want a bedroom version. Until next time, have a beautiful day.